All good.
It's like the sure don't take it back.
Yeah. Okay, you ready, girl?
I'm
Oh,
ready.
just born ready, right?
Yes, I was.
Good evening. My name is Scott Pouts. I'm an attorney in Forsyth, New York. I've been asked to serve as the hearing officer for this public hearing. It's a hearing required by Article 32 of the Public Health Law, New York State. The hearing is to hear public comments from everybody who wants to comment publicly. And what I'll ask you to do, and we'll talk about some ground rules in a minute, is to make sure if you do make any comments, you come up and sign this document. Obviously, it's consistent with the sign-in, but if you make a comment, you'll sign there. And the hearing is to hear public comments on the certificate of need. You heard that word CON a lot, it's the abbreviation for it, for ambulance services for the town of Hector. And I'm going to read the legal notice just into the record. The Southern Tier Regional EMS Council will hold a public hearing on October 24th, 2018 at 7 p.m. in the town of Hector, the Mecklenburg Fire Department, located at 4495 County Road 6, Mecklenburg, New York 14863, for the purpose of hearing public comments on the certificate of need for ambulance services for the town of Hector. Article 30, Section 303 of the New York State Public Health Law states that, quote, the Regional Emergency Medical Services Council shall have the responsibility to make determinations of public need, which as we all know is the standard, I'm kind of deviating from this, for the establishment of additional emergency medical services and ambulance services, and to make the determination of public need as provided in Section 3008, again, of the New York State Public Health Law. The public hearing will provide a forum for public comment, people in the public an opportunity to comment, and citizen participation to assist the council in the determination of the need. The town of Hector currently holds a municipal certificate of need CON that's being transitioned to a traditional certificate of need as required by law. The regional council is tasked by public health law to act on the application and forward the recommendation to New York State Department of Health, where a certificate of need will either be issued or denied. They'll be the ultimate decision makers there. Regional EMS, Emergency Management Service Council, will use the comments from tonight in their deliberations and the determination of need. Some ground rules tonight: if you want to speak, just state your name, where you're from, and occupation. Again, you can sign this later, and then add anything you'd like regarding this particular application. No issues with respect to any public servants or anything like that. Just keep it confined to the application itself. And with that said, just recognize we've got the town supervisor here, Mr. Alvin White. So good evening, and a couple members from the council. Stenographer, my good friend Beth is here. I've known him for a number of years, and the proceedings also being videotaped, which I guess are required to be uploaded on site as well. So with that, we can start the public comment. If anyone has any public comments with respect to this application. Buddy?
I mean, can I speak?
Please, sure, yes, just state your name.
Okay,
and, where you're from.
I'm Alvin White. I'm supervisor of the town of Hector. The town of Hector, it was back in the previous supervisor, which was Ben Dickens. We recognized there were some issues that of the time response that we were seeing up into the Mecklenburg district for ambulance calls. Now, over the years, Schuyler County has been serviced. The certificate of need that was at Schuyler Ambulance had served the whole Schuyler County, and there was no other certificate of needs besides Schuyler Ambulance that was going on in Schuyler County. So when we started doing this research, we got data. We started, I think, in July of 2013, and we did it for a year through June 30th of 2014. And what we did is we got the data from the Schuyler Sheriff's Department, who was responsible for doing the calls for ambulance service or fire departments. And we tracked for any time it was an EMS call to this area, to the Mecklenburg Fire District, how long was it for average response time. And when we did that data, we found it was about 24 minutes. Now, one of the things about the Mecklenburg Fire District is it's kind of unique within Schuyler County because it also has another ambulance service, comes out of Tompkins County, out of the village of Trumansburg, that provides the same service through they have paramedic service, and so does Schuyler Ambulance. But they have the same service and the same level of care, and it's probably logistically, it's half as close to all the district within the Mecklenburg Fire District. So, and they also respond to one small section because we do have a fire protection district that Trumansburg responds to in the town of Hector. And in that area, we already had an ambulance district set up for that. So to authorize it so we could get the ambulance service in there, the first thing we had to do was create a district, a special district by town law, under municipal law. So we had to go ahead and create that district, which was done through a permissive referendum. We had a referendum to set up an ambulance district before we could even go after the certificate of need to allow Trumansburg to come in here. So we did that, that passed, so we got the authority, so now we have that special district here in Mecklenburg. And now the town, through the certificate of need, through the temporary, we went through all that, got the ability to allow Trumansburg to respond to this area. So once that started, which was about March of 2017, I think.
17.
Yeah, 2017 is when that officially started. And now I went back and tracked the data from when that occurred up to the present, and looking at the time, the response time to all the calls is about 12 minutes on an average, which is 1/2 of what the calls were from Schuyler Ambulance. And as we all know, in the emergency medical world, 12 minutes or half the time is a big, I'm going to say, change. It's significant because speed, that's one of the most important things is to get there as fast as you can on an ambulance call. So from my perspective, I'm very in favor of the town having a certificate of need to be able to allow other ambulance services as the need, to come into the area. So.
Very good. All set. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll take a moment. So my name is Nathan Mayo. I'm the chief of the Mecklenburg Volunteer Fire Company here. I'm also a software engineer by day, if that matters.
Good to know. Chief.
So one of the things that I would like to see done, and I don't think it necessarily can be done under the certificate of need, but just as making public comment about the situation. Trumansburg Ambulance, I've had no complaints with them. I mean, there's been a few situations that I've dealt with their administrative staff on a personal level, got good response from them, not been an issue. One of the things that I would like to see from the standpoint of if they are tied up, for instance, they run 2 ambulances, I would prefer the Mecklenburg Ambulance District, as it's called now as far as the ambulance coverage goes, second choice be Schuyler Ambulance, because the response time to calls now, the dynamic that exists is when Schuyler County contacts Tompkins County, the ambulance portion of that call becomes theirs. So if there's a mutual aid need, which means that Trumansburg Ambulance is tied up, they preferentially go to Bangs Ambulance, which comes out of Ithaca, which is further away, okay? In some cases, there were times, 2 o'clock in the morning, for instance, and as you know, that's the witching hour, right? The ambulances are very busy at that time of day. Carl and I had gotten back from a fire call in Enfield. We were 2 members who were available. We'd been wrung out from 3 hours of a fire, got a rescue call, and we waited a fair amount of time, probably an hour, for Bangs Ambulance to come out one night. So there was a delay of care there because of that. So my preference would be to see next closest agency dispatched, as opposed to just deferring to the Tompkins County mutual aid agreement that exists within. It's almost as if the folks in Schuyler County are turning that over. And I had a little bit of an incident several weeks ago where we needed a helicopter, or we had a potential to have a helicopter come in for some patients that had suffered some trauma. And ultimately, Trumansburg Ambulance is responsible for the ambulatory care, and that helicopter is my responsibility. They were attempting to dispatch a helicopter through Tompkins County Dispatch into Schuyler County. It was a rat's nest of, me trying. I had to basically contact the folks in Schuyler County and tell them that I needed to have command of the helicopter site because I was in charge of the landing zone. So there's been some confusion there, but ultimately, that's my responsibility in a situation like that to assert myself, and I have no problem doing that. But the delayed care from turning it over for the Tompkins County mutual aid agreement is a bit troubling at times. It hasn't been a lot of times, but when it has been necessary, it's delayed the care.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody in the council, can anybody kind of, go ahead, Jeff. In
Yeah,
terms of prior, my question was, anybody speak on? who
Trumansburg
said-
will not hold the CON.
Right.
The town holds the CON. The town can tell Trumansburg what the
Correct.
mutual aid will be.
Okay.
That's his call,
That would
and the
be-
council's,
and
and
I
your
would-
council's
I
call.
would absolutely do that, because I
Right.
agree with Nate. I think that
So
should be
the-
the second, if Trumansburg was tied up, then our second response should be.
And that's 100% your call.
And that's something that should be set up through Bill Kennedy
Right.
at your EMO
And I-
office, is
yeah.
that
I can do that.
if Trumansburg is not able
Yeah,
to
I
respond,
didn't
then
know-
it's
I
their
didn't know that.
responsibility.
Yeah, so that was, there's
Because
been some
our
ambiguity
intent
there.
would
yeah.
always been Schuyler Ambulance would be next, but,
No,
we have to-
we've found in several instances that they've had both.
That's all how you set up your mutual aid agreements through
Yeah.
through your emergency management office.
Yeah.
Okay. That's Jen. Jen's.
Have along.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, all at the same time, too. She's
That's
always. So good, I wanted somebody on the council
Oh,
to
yeah,
answer.
and I'm glad they did, because I wasn't aware, that's, it helps me too, because I'll make sure that
So,
happens.
This is.
From our perspective.
Approved, it sounds to me like you'll have the authority to designate the sequence of events and who's on second if you go. Okay? Any further, good comments, thank you, Chief. Any further comments from anyone here?
Carl Tabor, firefighter EMT here at Mecklenburg. Start out with that hat. And I don't think, I think we've been relatively satisfied with service from Trumansburg, and I don't think we were that unsatisfied with Schuyler for the most part prior to that. But I think the mutual aid thing you just alluded to, we could get that straightened out. That will help a lot. Wearing my second hat as a farmer, in the last 2 years since we've gone to this, the extra charge for the ambulance district it's a special use district. It's not subject to ag assessment or ag exemption. So on our relatively modest farm, it's costing us $1,000 a year for the privilege of having Trumansburg ambulance. So that, that's doesn't have to do with certificate of need, but that is an issue. And I think when we're contemplating this before, and what we were sold, I think hasn't been exactly what became, we
Okay.
wound up getting. So it's, but I also recognize that staffing ambulances and funding ambulances, probably for the foreseeable futures, are just going to be a challenge. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Paul Tabor. I'm a farmer, also a volunteer firefighter. And due to the fact of the expense of staffing an ambulance and the fact that it cost the town of Hector for the special needs district extra money from the taxpayers, if Schuyler Ambulance had had that money to work with, is it possible that Schuyler Ambulance could put more crews on and get a better response time? We don't know, but they never had the monetary compensation to work with that Trumansburg does. to staff 2 ambulances and cover the town of Culver as well as Trumansburg district.
Yeah, and I mean, that's all county tax dollars assessed or allocated where they're going to allocate, so. And also, I think that the one distinction is, as you brought up, the town supervisor brought up was, Supervisor White, was the distance, I think the timing and the distance, it seemed to favor Trumansburg as opposed to Schuyler, so even if it were a tax.
Correct, but if they had, my argument is if they already had another crew sitting in the barn in Schuyler that was twiddling their thumbs, their response time could be better.
Understand.
Because we hear it on the radio that so-and-so is going to be a paramedic that has to drive to the station for, per se, a second crew because there's only one crew on duty. But we're almost dealing with the same thing sometimes, depending on the part of our district, with Trumansburg now. We went to a call on Lisk Road the other night, Schuyler picked them up. So, I mean, it happens. I mean, I know, it's too bad it's all about money because if money was money, but if Schuyler had more money to work with, they might be able to have more people on staff.
Sure.
Can I comment on that, Scott?
Please.
So you do realize that the certificate of need is not with Trumansburg, it's with the town of Hector. So when it's, the town of Hector has the right to contract with whoever they please, or to put whatever specific requirements in that contract. So it's not saying that Schuyler Ambulance could never respond here as an ambulance service again. It's whoever the town of Hector, the town board of Hector, and I'm sure that they have public comment before they make these contracts, that they can contract with any ambulance service to be able to do that.
All right, so I guess in terms of relatively misspeaking, I'm not locking the supervisor and his board into, we're just trying to give him the demonstrated certificate of need, and then as Greg Kimball indicated, then your board makes the determination, or the public makes the determination if it goes that way. So,
And I could, if it's okay, I could speak a little bit to what Paul,
Please, yeah,
some of the questions that Paul asked. The first thing was, when we started doing this research, back in the very beginning of the research of seeing what we could do, the first thing we did go to Schuyler Ambulance and said, Schuyler Ambulance, is there any way, what we're doing is asking, is there any way that you can improve your response time to the Mecklenburg district? And we asked them to look at it and come back to us and, with the response, which they did. I mean, short of probably putting another ambulance up into this area, there really didn't have a satisfactory, because even if they had the money, I don't care. They're still twice, in mileage, they're still twice as far as Trumansburg. And usually their response, even though it was an immediate response, it takes almost 20 minutes. From my house to get here, it takes almost 15 minutes, 10 to, more than that. And Schuyler's even further down, and I live in Burdett. So it's more of a logistics issue, really, for the certificate of need. And I agree, it is our right to do, however we wanted to pursue this. It's, the taxing part of it, because they are a village ambulance corps, you can tax for it, whereas a private ambulance corps, as far as I know, there is no law that allows them to be able to use tax money get tax money being that they're a private ambulance corps, and that I'm aware of at this time. Now, that may all change down the road, because I think the model I've seen of Trumansburg, their financial model, is probably a model that's going to be successful for most corps down the road, because some of these private ambulance corps I know that are not busy all the time are having difficulties financially, because it is tough, because they work on insurance revenues or donations.
Actually, just a correction, as a town, you can contract with a private company and pay them. AMR does it all across the country.
That I didn't know.
Yeah.
See, that's.
Yeah, so you could still do it,
could.
But that doesn't make them any closer.
Right,
Let's just say
that's the
bring an
real
ambulance
problem.
Up here.
Yeah, that's good to know, though, because I wasn't aware of that, because I knew that. Years ago, when we first started all this work, and when Trumansburg was looking at their model that they did, there was a lot of research and a lot of work to get to that model, being able to get insurance, to get reimbursed for insurance payments and taxes at the same time. I know there was a lot of laws and hurdles that had to be overcome to do that.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Yes, Carl Tabor again. I think just for the record, I'm not opposed to the town having a certificate of need. As a matter of fact, I guess I'd say I'd support it.
Very good.
That's all, strictly from that sense. And Alvin, the reason we're getting to the other stuff is because you're here and we've got a chance to.
It's a dark parking lot.
There is some things you're gonna see, when you get the new taxes this year, a big reduction in the Mecklenburg ambulance district, because you're starting to now see the full impact of the reimbursement starting to come in, where previously it was only partial. So that's starting to reduce what the payments will be. And I do agree with you on the other side, there may be some research we have to do on the ag, because that was, if it's an ambulance after a certain time frame, they couldn't apply it, and I don't know what all the laws are there, we could look into that.
I know from what we have to go through on the IDA is, we can exempt anything except special use districts,
And there may be a reason you can't do it, so I'd have to do some homework on that part of it, to see if there's any, if you could put some.
I have to imagine the Bergen boys.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Quite excited about it.
Well, and the only time anybody gets hurt on Carl's property is somebody's not supposed to be there, so.
Right.
I don't want to talk about that.
And the other thing is too, Nathan Mayo again.
Thanks, Chief.
They had, there was a vote on this also, and I think the folks in our district probably spoke when that vote occurred, that this was, in the interest of the majority of the folks that live down here, at least about to show up. Yes.
Okay, good to know. Any further comments? Okay, the time being 7:22, I'll close the meeting. I'll ask all of you that spoke, even though it's back there, if you just take some time, just come up, print your name, so I have that information. I have to put together, once I get the transcript, put together some type of fact-finding decision, and we'll go from there. So thank you for taking time out of your long days to be out here this evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to Rick Kimball too to be the hearing officer. Hope I didn't mess it up too bad. Maybe I'll do it again. So thanks to the most important person here, Beth, the stenographer. So thank you.
Thank you.
Close the meeting. Just like the eldest tree, anybody who spoke, please.
Will you send that to me?
Say again.
Will you send that sheet to me?